We're starting off with Riff Fom, the bad boy of all the heroes. How am I supposed to rank a hero that I don't even respect? This guy cheats. You get a steal, basically the first minion that you kill of your opponent's board. Combine this with Red Whelp and Zap, and you can end up getting a random Bran or some other card of great value. So while I do not ethically agree with this card, there are no morals when it comes to Battlegrounds. So for now, I'm going to put it at an A tier. Lich King. 1 mana hero power, give a minion reborn for that turn only. It's one of those hero powers, which is useful because it can help you in the early game. Of course, it's great with death rattles, but the reborn minion doesn't come back with the buffs. You gotta realize that. It's great with Kangor's Apprentice. Yes, everybody loves it with the bombs, but it's a hero power that you have to use every single turn in order for it to get value. And if you happen to not go with a death rattle build, what are you going to use this on? With that said, it's a powerful effect throughout the entire game. You got to put it at B tier, at least. Can someone tell me what this hero is actually named? Isn't it like Tinker or Toki? No, that's somebody else. Give +2 attack to all Mex and Bob's Tavern. Attack isn't even really the most important stat. Mostly it's about health and then having a decent attack. In the early game, yeah, I guess this is okay, but it limits you to mechs, so if you don't pick up mechs, you're not getting any hero power gain. And how does this really help you scale up in the long term? You can't really squeeze a lot of juice out of this hero. And I like my juice. Okay, I'm gonna say right now, F tier is for the absolute worst. Like, unbearable. You can't stand this. I'm gonna put it at the D tier for now, but we'll see where it ends up. Ysera, it's a passive hero power, puts out a dragon on the board every time you come in. It's pretty decent in the early and mid game because with those dragons, you can hopefully build a pretty legit build. You can also kind of early game triple cheese this if you happen to get a couple of red whelps in a row. It's tough though because sometimes you can't force dragons, and in that case, then this isn't really that good. So it's a tough sell for me. I think most of the time it is consistent enough to get you into a decent position, a decent board, but it's nothing that's going to put you over the top. So I'm going to put it at C tier for now. Rat King. In the early game, it's all about stats. So most likely, adding the 1-2 stats from this hero power is just going to make it the best option. And I'd say the early game is strong enough for Rat King that it does really help your chances of making it to the later game. When you actually do get to the later game, though, you better have a game plan because, gaining 1-2 off of some certain minions doesn't really matter. This is not a late game hero power, but it does provide a great early game. So for that reason, B tier. You stinky old Rat King. Listen. I thought this wouldn't be so bad. I thought, okay, you get some cleave minions. You deal some damage, you get to attack first, that's gotta be a good advantage right there. No. Oh, it's just, come on. This is terrible. Stick to standard, boy. Alright, this lady looks like she's from Star Wars. This is the hero power where you can deal 2 damage to yourself and get a coin. 1 extra mana you can use whenever you want. There's the Mal'Ganis cheese later on, where if you get to tier 5, get Mal'Ganis, your hero's immune, unlimited coins. Value, but the advantage you get from this is pretty trash. It is incredibly hard to use. Some people can find success with it, but I'm putting it at a D tier. Maligos! 0 mana, change or transform a minion into a different minion of the same tier type. Let's say you see a 4-tier minion that you don't really want, and so you change it and it becomes a menagerie. You can be like, oh sweet, I'm gonna pick that up. Or let's say you have a menagerie, you can play that on your board, and then after you get that Battlecry effect, you can then change that to another 4-drop like a Highmane and get a bunch more value. There's times where it's going to be really valuable, but I think for the most part, because there's so many different minions, and success really does rely on synergies, that you're not going to find too much success with Malygos. I'll put it at a C tier for now. I think that's a reasonable spot. Next up is Shuttle Joaquin. You know your boy loves Shuttle Joaquin. It's amazing for Murlocs because you don't need Bran, and Murlocs rely on so many battle cries. You can go for the Pogo strat if you end up finding a couple Pogos. It's like having Bran in the early game. Granted, you can only double the battle cry effect once every turn, and it does cost 1 mana, so that is something to consider. But the amount of cheese you can do with this card is amazing. I mean, you can double your battle cry buffs for almost every single tribe, and for that reason, I'm putting it at an S tier. It's good in the early game, good in the late game, hella fun. Way better than Elefun the elephant. Little flaccid elephant that would shoot up butterflies and you'd catch them with a net. Even when I was a stupid child, I knew that was no fun. Next up we got Yogg. 2 mana, random minion, and you also give it 1/1. This is ridiculous for the early game. Early game's all about stats. Who cares if you get a Mekaru with this? It becomes a 2/2 that summons a 1/1. It's pretty hard to lose in the first 3, 4, 5 rounds with this guy. Every once in a while, a Rat King will just happen to outbuff you because you get a bad random minion. But you can go on autopilot for like the first 10 turns and just click hero power, pick up a minion, tier up normal rate, all that stuff. You can be ridiculously dumb as I was when I used to play with Elefun the elephant, and I would mow the lawn in my moon shoes. That mind-numbing and ridiculous early game lets you retain enough health where later on in the mid game, in the late game, you can start to form a plan to try to combat other opponents. For that reason, it's going in the S tier. Professor Putricide. Poor guy. It's looking pretty rough for the Professor as of lately. It's not really that good also in the early and mid game. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put it in the F tier. It's just not up to snuff. It doesn't provide enough value. Watch out. Sindragosa. Being able to freeze your board and give everything 1/1 is just instantly going to make them better than most of your other early game cards. You can keep a minion frozen for a couple of rounds and all of a sudden it becomes a stud. So it does provide a really good early game. With that said, the advantages don't really last that long. I'm going to put it at a C tier. It's definitely the best out of all these C tier heroes, but there's still plenty of heroes to go. So there's going to be some tough decisions, okay? Next, we have Toki, 1 mana, refresh, Bob's Tavern, add a minion from a tier above. Because it only costs 1 mana, it's a really easy option where just the first time you would refresh, instead you just use this hero power. So it's a low risk hero power that could end up in a high reward, but to say it would consistently help you out with a certain game plan is a bit misleading. For this reason, I'm going to put it in A tier. I do like the gameplay of this class and it's pretty valuable, so I think that's a fitting spot. Alright, Cermak Finley. I mean, this is impossible to really rank. It doesn't even, you can't consider it a real hero because it just copies off of other people. The only thing I can really judge him on is that if you have other options that you don't like, this could be your savior. You can end up picking this and then choose from 3 hero powers. For free-to-play players, getting this as one of your 2 options is really useful because essentially it changes your options from just having 2 heroes to having 4. Personally, I've never had 3 choices that I wasn't like, okay, yeah, you know what, I will pick that one. So I think it's an A tier minion. Speaking of options, Curator. You get that 1/1 amalgam to start off. Really good for buffing the early game. I mean, you start out with an extra 1/1 minion that other people don't get to have. And if you remember, when the 3/4 amalgam was in the game previously, it was basically the meta. Everybody had to get an amalgam by a certain turn and then start buffing it, because that was just the best play. There's the rare occasion when you'll sell the amalgam. I'm pretty sure, though, that's heresy, and I think you will be visited by the ghost of Ben Brode. It's hard to think why Curator would be anything below S tier. There's definitely a consistency that comes with Curator, but the cheese of these other 2 heroes is just something that Curator doesn't quite have. My boy Alexstrasza. At tier 5, you get to discover 2 dragons. You don't actually have to play dragons if you're playing Alexstrasza. It's encouraged. Discovering 2 dragons at tier 5 means you could end up getting a Razor Core, which is always good. And then if you do still have a couple of dragons, you might be able to get a triple, which means you get a tier 6 minion. Now, with that said, you're on your own until you can get to tier 5, so it's your job to pick reliable minions to get you there. Again, a lot of difficult choices. I could see myself putting this in C tier, but I think it's just too limited, and the more competitive you get, the more important it is to have a good early and mid game, and Alexstrasza just doesn't have that. If you aren't finishing top 4, then you're last. Next up is Queen Togwaggle. I don't get how people can play this hero. Early game attack is useful. This can help you compete a little bit, but a really important thing is health and keeping your minions alive. attack will only do so much if your opponent has resummoning things or just has a lot of health. In addition, if you're trying to build according to this hero power, then most likely you're going for a Light Fang sort of deck. And upon my recollection, Light Fang is a tier 5 minion, but more likely than not, you'll end up choosing a certain tribe or strategy going forward. And so a lot of the time, the hero power is now going to be 1 mana, give 2 minions to attack, give at most like 3 minions to attack. I'm going to put it at D tier. It has some value. Galakrond is ahead of it though. And you know what? So is this guy. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with this ordering. So this is lower, this is higher. So lower, higher, lower, higher, lower. Nefari poopy. 1 mana, deal 1 damage to the enemy board. If you can make it to the late game, and let's say your opponent is playing Murlocs, then they got Divine Shield and Poison and Wind Fury and all that stuff, this is an easy counter. The dominant late game meta does revolve around Divine Shield, so Nefarian is a good counter to that. Unfortunately, Divine Shield is usually only given to a couple of minions in the early and mid game. And even in the late game, if you're facing up against dragons, Nadina is going to trigger its death rattle after this hero power is active, so it's basically useless in that way. This is pretty close to a D tier minion. In fact, I think it is a D tier minion above Galakrond just a little bit. The opportunity to get first place against a Murloc with Poison and Divine Shield, that's fantastic. But the chance of getting the top 2 is pretty limited, so that's why it's going in D tier. AFK. Blessed are the times where you can pick 2 Shifter Zuruses and go completely balls to the walls and try to get a win that way. More likely though, 2 3-tier minions usually is going to win you that round. Everybody always hates facing AFK turn 3. I think the advantage is more of a hit than a miss most of the time, but it's not going to really help you that much in the late game. You're just hoping that the first early 2 losses that will deal, 5 or 6 damage isn't going to be much of a problem when you go on a nice win streak. I'm going to put it at B tier. Baby Van Cleef. You're incentivized to buy a lot of minions, sell them, buy some more minions. You get that reward of targeting a minion and nurturing it and be like, you're going to be my little Cave Hydra Cleave, or you're going to be my Battle Master with a bunch of attack. Oh. No, don't say it went. Oh no, it disappeared. Where did the minions go? Where did they go? Are they not all here? Where's Shutterwalk? Like, why is Shutterwalk not even there? I'm getting DDoSed, man. Men. What the fuck is this tier list? Oh. Lil Pump. What the fuck? That is disgusting. Who is this guy? He looks kind of creepy. This is Getty image. Hey, everybody. I mean, come on, he's a cutie. What am I doing? Okay, we're back. Little butler bot dude. Reduce the cost of tiers by 1. It's still pretty useful, no doubt, but sometimes you find yourself either picking a minion or tiering up, and sometimes you'll lose mana and you don't know exactly when to tier up and when to pick minions. I guess that's where skill comes in. So perhaps this is just a little bit difficult to play. I still think it's a pretty good card. I'm going to put it in the C tier. I think C tier is the perfect place. Alright, Alakazam, Alakazoo, 1, 2, 3, sniff my shoe. This is the hero power that you get Ice Block, right? That's basically why you use this hero power. There's other good ones. Summon a copy of a minion, resummon it, basically giving it Reborn. It's a 2 mana hero power. But it lets you live another turn when you get Ice Block. And for that reason, if you have a decent build, you should be able to get, top 5 at least? Like, if you have a steep competition, top 5. But I think a decent build, plus the Ice Block gives you an extra turn. I think you should be able to get top 4 with this minion. For that reason, I'm going to put it at A tier. That Ice Block is going to bring you from 6th place up to 4th place at least. Next we have Georgie. The problem is it just isn't that good in the early game or the mid game really. This is similar to Van Cleef in that it's like, oh, you know what? I'm going to buff this certain minion. It's really going to help me out. Divine Shield, like I said, it's a part of the late game. You really want to have things with Divine Shield. So this could allow you to play a beast deck that also has Divine Shield. Like, how powerful would that be? 3 mana is still so much for a Divine Shield, and it's really not as flexible as something like Van Cleef. I think C tier right there, perfect spot for George. Alright, now it's the thumb-looking Frankenstein dude. Start out with 50 health instead of 40. There are benefits to this. Maybe you want to go Demons, maybe you want to go Wrathweaver. Also, it just prevents you from dying early, right? That's pretty nice. With no real advantage to any stage in the game, except for, I guess, yeah, maybe you survive an extra round, which is definitely an important thing, but it's not the same as Alakazam dude over there. That is much better than just getting 10 health. That is... Oh no, you dumb... Oh, it's still here! Oh! And with no actual gain from using this minion at any point in the game, it's pretty clear that this is a D tier minion. I'm gonna put her right there. Oh, all the orders got mixed up. Deathwing, everybody's least favorite, most played hero. Had to get nerfed so that it only dealt 2 damage. Still, though, early game ramp pack is some cheese. What's nice about it is it does completely change your gameplay and your playstyle. You're looking for tokens, you're looking for resummon. That stuff isn't actually going to work super well in the late game. That 2 attack really did nerf the mid game abilities of Deathwing. Now other players can keep up with him a little bit better, so Deathwing can't tier up incredibly fast anymore. Still though, it's a pretty good hero power, so I'm gonna put this in A tier, between A and B, right at the end of A tier. Lord Jirax, you know what, Lord Jirax, we love you. We love you. We even nerfed a Sacrificial Pact so that you aren't in danger now in Standard. But yeah, you know what? It's an F tier for me. There's demons in the game, and it's good to buff them, but for 2 mana? Are you serious? Not only does it try to pigeon you whole into a certain tribe, which is never a good thing, but it's also really expensive, and some of the best things about demons are actually non-demons, like the Jugglers or the Wrathweavers. You're close to being behind Professor Putricide, but you just got that 6-pack, I can't refuse it. Alright, it's Reno time, baby. This is such a fun class. It still falls into the same trap as George over here in that it's an expensive hero power that you don't really want to use until the late game. You can use this on an Iron Sensei. You could also try to strategize getting a triple so that, you know, you get to tier 4 and then you get the triple and then you get a tier 5 minion and then you can use your hero power on that. I've heard some people argue where it's like, oh, you know what, if you're doing really bad, you can just golden a minion and then that will save you for the next couple rounds and you should be able to get top 4. But there's not a lot of early game minions that you can use your hero power on that will save you if you're already low on health. I don't know any person that doesn't like Reno as a hero. It's just super fun, and every once in a while you get some ridiculous cheese. But for that reason, I'm gonna put it at right there in the B tier. Next up we have Elise. This is super useful. Discovering usually lets you pick a card or minion that's strong, or it's going to go with the strategy you're going with. It's not something that's going to make you super overpowered, and for that reason it's a tough decision, but I'm going to put it at the top of the C tier. Maybe some people will say Syndragos is better because of the early game, but I find myself using Elise more, and I find it a more useful hero power. Ooh, okay. We got to talk about Milhouse. This is tough. This hero is ridiculous now because they've tried to balance it. It's 2 mana for each minion, but it's also 2 mana to refresh, and then also tiers cost 1 more. Increasing the cost of tiering up each time you want to tier is going to make any hero hard to play, and Milhouse took the brunt of this nasty nerf. Was it overpowered? Yes. But I don't think this was the nerf solution. It really did have a disadvantage in the late game where sometimes you couldn't find the late triples that you would need to try to overpower your opponent. It was an interesting gameplay sometime long ago, but now now it is D tier, and I'm gonna put it right here. And you know, there's still some potential to it. It's still got a little bit of kick to it, but it's very mild. We got Dancing Darryl. This is another one of those cards that has a super unique playstyle. You can choose if you want to, you know, sort of play it normally, just sell minions tier up as you would. You can go crazy, and if you're lucky, maybe you find a Cave Hydra kind of early on and you just buff that to hell. Maybe you want to go real early on and you find like a Righteous Protector that you just want to make a 10-10 because you can. I have my own issues with the card simply because of this video in the top right if you want to check that out. But it's such a versatile hero, and it's pretty powerful still, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to put it right here in between Reno and Van Cleef. Nosdormu. You'd think this would be a boring hero power. What's weird about this is it's actually really good. Being able to be like, nah, I don't like this on turn 1. It's kind of like if you were to think the early game, you were able to choose from 6 1-drops instead of just 3. Now, it's a little bit different because after you refresh it and get rid of those first 3, you can't go back and pick them. But it's still a powerful effect, and it's still powerful in the late game when you're refreshing 6 minions. Yeah, this effect is pretty crazy. I'm going to put it right here in A tier, right between Alakazam Dude and Sir Finley. You know what? Right before Alakazam Dude. I like the gameplay actually of Nosdormu better, but Alakazam just gives you an extra round, so you gotta give him props for that. Galakrond. Third Eye Galakrond. You can get a tier 6 minion by like what, turn 7, turn 8, something like that. It's a fun, risky strategy, but it's still good later on. It's similar to the effect of Toki, except you don't get to refresh the board, but you do get to prioritize a single minion. If you're at tier 4, you can upgrade one to a tier 5 minion, freeze on that, and then the next turn get a tier 6 minion, and it's pretty flexible in that regard. I'm going to put it at the lowest spot on the B tier. I think all these other options are just a bit better, but it's a powerful effect and a really fun card. Next we got Pyramid Dude. I'm in love with Pyramid Dude, okay, I'm gonna be honest. It's ridiculous in the early game. Playing this hero, sometimes I think to myself, do I just want to sell that alley cat or that Mecharoo so that I can fit a hero power in? And honestly, sometimes it's worth it. Having that +4 health is such an advantage, especially in the early game. For that reason, I'm going to put it in the A tier above Alakazuki. It's definitely better than Rat King, but still a little bit worse than Yogg here. Okay, it's finally time. If you want to call it Flurglemancer, whatever, no, it's Murloc Mama, okay? If you need to familiarize yourself with the lore of this channel, look at to the top right. But basically every gameplay of Battlegrounds that I post has Flurgle. Jesus, I've been recording for too long. Every single gameplay I have has Murloc Mama, this thick mother. This makes Murloc Tidehunter one of the best tier 1 minions in the game. You can sometimes get away with not even having a brand and continue in the late game to sell Murloc, buy Murloc, sell Murloc, just keep on buffing like crazy. It does work very well with brand though. The one thing I will say, and trust me, I've had a ton of experience, is that there is a certain hump to playing Murlocs in the early game. It is tough in the early game to play Murlocs because they don't really have the buffs, in particular the health, to consistently win. That's where selling a Murloc and getting a Murloc like Cold Light Seer and like Felfin Navigator are really important. And obviously this hero power is random, so there are some games where you're not going to get top 4, but baby, if you do get top 4, you're going to go all the way. And if you find Bran, you're going to get a board full of Murlocs that have Divine Shield and Poison and Wind Fury, and they're all like 40 stats, and it's ridiculous. With Murloc Mama, when you win big. And when you're good to Mama, Mama is good to you. Love your mom. I think that's all I need to say. So without further ado, I'm locking these in. Thank you all for joining me. This is my tier list of all the heroes in Hearthstone as of May 2nd, 2020. If you are interested in watching mostly Murloc Mama, to be fair, my Twitch is pinned in the comments below and also in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, ta-ta.